I want you to hit me as hard as you can.
With the pandemic getting under control, Marvel Studios has returned in 2021 bigger and better than ever. And though their Disney Plus shows have become just as popular as their movies, that isn't stopping Marvel from finally debuting the long-delayed start of the MCU's fourth phase, as Scarlett Johansson reprises the role of Natasha Romanoff, aka the Black Widow. And with the film set to bank big in both movie theaters and on Disney Plus, it's clear that sisters are finally doing it for themselves in the world of superhero adaptations, with many more female-centric shows and movies to come in both the Marvel and DC universes that will wash the bad taste of Wonder Woman 1984 out of our mouths. And speaking of DC movies with unconvincing CGI Catwomen, we're finally talking about one of the very worst comic book movies in film history, with Halle Berry bearing her claws as Catwoman. The character of Catwoman is one of the most iconic adversaries in the history of Batman comics, trading both fisticuffs and kisses with Gotham City's Caped Crusader. And after Michelle Pfeiffer's latex-clad portrayal of the character in Batman Returns left quite an impression on audiences, Warner Brothers made plans to bring Pfeiffer back for a Catwoman spin-off movie, with Tim Burton returning to the director's chair. But with Joel Schumacher taking the Batman franchise in a more family-friendly direction, both Pfeiffer and Burton lost interest in the project, and the Catwoman movie would labor in development hell until 2004, when Warner Brothers needed something to replace its cancelled Batman vs. Superman movie, and cast the lead role with the lovely Halle Berry. After all, she had just broken racial barriers as the first woman of color to win a Best Actress Oscar and play a heroic Bond girl. So to have her filling Eartha Kitt's heels as the second black Catwoman would surely make for a hit movie. That, of course, is not what happened, as Catwoman was quickly declawed by the critics, neutered at the box office, and sweeping at the Razzie Awards. Just 1 year before Christopher Nolan would save the Batman franchise, and later went on to save the Catwoman character as well. So even though Catwoman now lives in infamy, let me determine for myself whether this Meowthie is really a catastrophe, or if the critics were just kidding themselves. I'm Gene Shalit. And don't you worry, DC, this movie has no scenes of Catwoman going oral on your precious Dark Knight. After all, it's not like you made a movie where Catwoman was clearly trying to give Batman a handy underneath his codpiece, and yet still went on to sell a line of Happy Meal toys at McDonald's. God, DC, your behavior is so hypercritical. But first, it's time to whip open a bottle of Jack and pour it into your saucer of milk so that you can lap up the awfully good drinking game. Take a shot or drink every time the opening credit sequence showcases one of the many Catwomen that have been present in the course of world history. Joan of Arc? She was a Catwoman. That girl from Brave? Also a Catwoman. Ruth Bader Ginsburg? Total Catwoman. Well, now that's just a picture of Sean Young breaking into the auditions for Tim Burton's Catwoman, and that is Michael Cera in the role of Kitty Cat Man. Now our story opens with Halle Berry narrating over the sight of her lifeless body.
The day that I died was also the day I started to live.
Is it a ripoff of the opening to Daredevil or Sunset Boulevard? Why not both? This is the future Catwoman of the film, Patience Phillips, named after the very thing which this film's audience will soon lose. She is a meekly mannered aspiring artist who's had to abandon her art career to work as a designer for the Hedare Beauty Cosmetics Company, located right in the heart of Gotham,
a named metropolitan area,
and owned not by Christopher Walken as Max Schreck, but by the company's namesake, George Hedare, played by the Matrix's Merovingian, Lambert Wilson, who is introducing both his latest revolutionary beauty product named Beuline and the supermodel who will serve as the company's new face to replace George's middle-aged model wife, Laurel, played by Sharon Stone.
I look forward to seeing you all at the gala where you can toast Adrena and our success in person.
Careful, George. She's not old enough to drink.
It's worth it to come to these business meetings so that we can laugh at our boss's comedic bickering.
You're laughing, but I don't know. I don't know if that's a nervous laugh or...
But Patience makes it through her humdrum job with help from her wisecracking co-worker, Sally, played by the very funny Alex Borstein, who demonstrates none of her talent with this useless sidekick role.
I don't even know how you get it. It's not even in production yet. We have our ways.
Now go. Ooh, go give him some brown sugar.
Aren't you glad I pushed you into it? Props to Sally. Let me hear my props.
God damn, am I watching a superhero movie or a pilot episode for the new CBS sitcom Girl Please? Patience is visited at her apartment by a stray cat named Midnight, whom Patience tries to retrieve from a ledge by walking out onto a ledge herself so that we can have a contrived plot device that'll have Patience meeting the male lead of our film, Benjamin Bratt, who's gone from playing an NYPD detective on Law & Order to the hero detective that will serve as Catwoman's love interest named Tom Lone.
Detective Long. Tom Long.
Tom Lone. Rhymes with cone, phone, bone.
Look, I'm used to seeing stupid names in the DC universe, but Patience Phillips and Tom Lone aren't the names for your movie's heroes. They're the names for the porno actors who would play these parts in the Catwoman XXX parody.
Hey, man sandwich, 12 o'clock.
Oh, great to see you here too, mid-2000s gay stereotype. I'm sure you'll add some much-needed dignity. And stop looking at Benjamin Bratt like that. You look like you want to peel the flesh off of his bones and make a literal man sandwich out of him.
That is a man in serious like with you. You think?
You have to wear that leather outfit Lance and I got you for your birthday.
Remember, I will never, ever, ever wear that leather outfit.
Foreshadowing! Anyway, Patience's boss tasked her with coming up with a new design for their next ad campaign.
I have no idea why I expected your art to show better taste than your wardrobe.
Oh, for God's sake, George.
By tomorrow night, midnight.
I question the logic of having her hand in an assignment when their office is closed and you're not even awake, but hey, you're the evil boss. But when Patience is forced to drive to the company's lab to deliver the project herself, she comes across the lab's head scientist telling Laurel Hadair about the toxic side effects of their new beauty cream.
I don't care that the FDA never saw the headaches and the nausea and
Camera 1, camera 2, camera 1, camera 2, camera 1, camera 2. Camera 1, camera 2.
And I see we're now just stealing wholesale from the plot of Batman Returns. Our future Catwoman coming across her boss's secret evil plan, and the boss deciding to do away with the poor girl before she reveals it to the authorities.
We don't know who she is, but we all know what she heard.
Get rid of her.
But instead of falling out from a window, Halle Berry meets her death when Laurel's henchmen flush her out of the lab's sewage pipes. Come to Six Flags after the movie's over and take a spin on the Catwoman water slide Thrillaganza, where you'll be swimming in slime and filth for 100 minutes and then leave without getting a refund. It's just like watching this movie. So Patience's lifeless body washes up on a nearby garbage heap surrounded by a gang of cats that's led by Midnight. And who the fuck are we kidding with that CGI? How is that a less convincing fake cat than Thackeray Binks? And Midnight climbs atop Patience to bring her back to life by upchucking some green smoke into her mouth? Yeah, I know that Selena Kyle was also revived by cats surrounding her body, but that made sense within Tim Burton's demented vision. This movie wants us to seriously accept a superhero origin that involves drowning in sewer water and a cat throwing up in a girl's mouth on a hunk of petrified trash. I'm pretty sure that's the origin story for Charlie Kelly on It's Always Sunny, or perhaps Maureen Ponderosa.
As I transition from woman to cat, I must insist on being referred to as a cat.
The next morning, Patience awakes to find herself sleeping on a shelf, one of the many cat-like behaviors that she finds herself adapting. She can hear and see things from a far distance. She starts to eat bumblebee tuna by the canful. She hisses at dogs barking at her.
I'm sorry, what was that? Allergies?
And she finally gathers the courage to tell off her horrible boss.
I'm sorry!
Sorry's not nearly enough.
And let me try the remix.
Unless you're insulting your boss with a beatbox routine or a guest rap from Little John, then using the word remix makes you sound like a high school teacher trying to rap with the kids.
Clean out your cubicle. You are fired.
What? Patience seeks answers for her bizarre behavior by tracking down the owner of Midnight the Cat, who goes by yet another stupid character name, Ophelia Powers. A part that was originally offered to OG Catwoman Julie Newmar, but is instead played here by Frances Conroy, who 15 years after being in one of the worst DC spin-offs would be in one of the best as Arthur Fleck's mentally ill mom in Joker. And I'm guessing from her multiple cats that Ophelia Powers is just as mentally stable as Penny Fleck was.
You should come back anytime. I'm always here. Catnip.
I would like to give you folks a brief history lesson here. This script was originally written by Batman Returns screenwriter Daniel Waters, then rewritten by 13 people over the course of the next decade. And even with 64 years of Catwoman's history in comic books to draw from, the best these people could come up with is, well, she's a cat now, so let's have her eating tuna and rubbing catnip on her face. I think Halle Berry needs to go check on her Oscar. It may be starting to fade from existence. Patience next meets up with Detective Lone to apologize for missing their date in the middle of his lecture to a bunch of school kids.
Can I see your gun?
No.
Will you shoot it?
No.
Hey, the poor guy had to improvise for this class after the guy in the McGruff costume got stuck in traffic.
Let's go shoot some hoop.
And the two of them face off on the school's playground in an erotically charged game of one-on-one basketball that is among the very worst moments in the history of comic book movies. How the hell does this scene move the story forward? We've suddenly turned into a fucking Sprite commercial. Hell, I can't even enjoy the sight of Halle Berry shaking her butt for the camera because this scene seems to have been edited by a bottle of Adderall that took human form. Man, if this doesn't lead to Catwoman popping up for a cameo in Space Jam 2, then I am going to be even more pissed.
Can we have our ball back?
This visual style that seems more appropriate for a perfume commercial than a superhero film is the trademark of Catwoman's director, who goes by the single name of Pitof, not to be confused with David Hasselhoff's chain of Greek restaurants, Pita Hoff. Before this movie, Pitof was the visual effects supervisor for acclaimed filmmaker Jean-Pierre Jeunet, and after this movie's failure, he'd make only one more film for the Sci-Fi Channel and would never direct again. And his one attempt at a Hollywood blockbuster feels like a man's idea of what women would want from a female-centered superhero film. Let's give her a wisecracking sidekick who's hungry for dick all the time. Let's have her chasing after a hunky Latino cop. Let's have her battling an evil makeup company instead of fighting real crime, because the ladies like makeup. Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman was so effective because she was the result of Selena Kyle having a mental breakdown at being pushed around by men all the time.
Life's a bitch. Now so am I.
Something that many women can relate to. But the most heroic thing that Halle Berry's Catwoman has done so far is confronting her next-door neighbor about turning down the generic rock music blasting from his speakers.
Why don't I do it myself?
Hey! Yes, I too am amazed that this movie's origin for Catwoman's iconic whip is from her pulling the nozzle out of a beer keg. So after giving herself a stylish new hairdo, at least looks better than her haircut at the Oscars this year, she breaks out her leather outfit for her first night out on the town as Catwoman. And compared to how bad her real costume is gonna look later, this one is really not all that bad. Why didn't they just stick with this simple yet sexy getup instead of turning it into the dollar store dominatrix costume that made this movie the subject of internet mockery?
You boys thought you could come in here and steal all these beautiful things? What a perfect idea.
I'm guessing that line of dialogue had Eartha Kitt getting up from the audience at this movie's premiere and walking to the bar across the street. Now, the fight scene between Catwoman and these bank robbers spotlights the two biggest demerits of this movie: the hyperkinetic editing that makes Bohemian Rhapsody look like Nomadland by comparison, and the clearly fake CGI double for Halle Berry whenever she has to jump up a great height or run atop the city's buildings. In 2021, you can see a show on the CW with effects as good as that of a theatrical movie. But in 2004, you've got a $100 million movie whose effects are indistinguishable from its tie-in video game. And why is she surfing on a guy's body? Who at Warner Brothers thought that the DC movies needed more inexplicable surfing after the horrors of Batman and Robin? And it was that line of dialogue that had Julie Newmar getting up from her seat and joining Eartha over at the bar. So after Patience performs a Google search for cats and women that results in her finding erotic fan art for Mike Myers' Cat in the Hat, oh yeah! She comes back to Ophelia so she can fill her in on the real story behind her newfound cat power.
The goddess Bast. The miles are sacred to Bast.
You wrote this?
I was a professor for 20 years, until I was denied tenure. Male academia.
Ma'am, you're living in a house with 20 cats that you think are messengers for an ancient Egyptian goddess. I seriously doubt that the patriarchy is to blame here for you being denied tenure.
You died. Midnight knew your fate. That's why she tested you.
Say, remember when Catwoman was just a regular woman who became a hero through her own strength and intelligence, and not a female version of the Crow? Although she was killed by the same guy who killed the Crow in that movie, as well as in real life.
He saved others before you. Look.
Oh no, this is the part where Patience finds out Frances Conroy was lying to her about Thomas Wayne being her real father. Speaking of which, there won't be any mentions of Bruce Wayne or Batman in this movie, but there will be a cameo from Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman in this folder of former Catwomen. Oh yeah, this movie is totally in the same universe as that Tim Burton movie starring Michelle Pfeiffer, Dark Shadows.
So I'm not Patience anymore?
You are Patience. And you are Catwoman.
I beg to differ. This character may be bland and flat, but she sure isn't Catwoman. To me, the only true Catwoman is Michelle Pfeiffer, Adrienne Barbeau, Anne Hathaway, or Taylor Swift. And how come Halle Berry doesn't dance anymore? Remember her performance in Baps?
Just keep moving, don't make eye contact.
So finally, at the film's halfway point, Patience looks to find out who killed her and why by donning her new and improved Catwoman outfit. And by improved, I mean on par with Damon Wayans as Blank Man. The previous Catwoman costumes of TV and film exuded both authority and sensuality. But this cheap number, stolen from a Prince backup dancer, manages to make Halle Berry look both unsexy and unintimidating. She would look just as powerful if she wore a low-rent Puss in Boots costume.
Meow, I'm the Catwoman. Look out, evildoers. I'm going to seduce you with my seductive femininity and then throw up cat treats on your rug. And I also steal jewelry. Snarf.
Oh, and you bet these lame cat jokes are gonna keep on coming.
White Russian. No ice. Hold the vodka. Hold the Kahlua.
Green. Straight up.
You know, when I saw that joke in this movie's trailer as a 13-year-old, that's when I discovered what cringe was before we even had a name for cringe.
Cat got your tongue?
But hey, thank God Christopher Nolan never sunk to making these lame jokes with his Catwoman.
Cat got your tongue.
God damn you, Nolan. I am still mad at you for that shit. So Catwoman confirms that Butylene does make your face go from looking like Cher to Cher Noble if you stop using the cream. And this is where I finally get to discuss Sharon Stone's role as the de facto villain of our story. While you can tell that Stone does not want to be here, her role does have a somewhat clever commentary on the age discrimination that Sharon experienced in her own career after she hit 40.
I was everything they wanted me to be. Never more beautiful, never more powerful. And then I turned 40, and they threw me away.
With some very witty comebacks at the expense of her scumbag husband.
Quit the self-tanning. Stop eating Viagra like they're vitamins. Resist the urge to date children born the same day they invented the cell phone.
But lest you think this movie is gonna turn into Sharon Stone versus the actress who played Sharon Stone in the Flintstones movie, the story focuses back on Patience juggling her alter ego alongside her relationship with Tom Lone, who happens to be investigating the trail left by this Catwoman, who's now prowling the streets of Schmotham Schmitty. And even after he sees his girlfriend scaling a broken Ferris wheel to save a child from falling out of his seat, and gobbling down a plate of sushi like she was Eddie Brock eating lobsters, this moron still does not connect the dots between his girlfriend's feline behavior and the masked Catwoman he faces off with when the cops corner her at a theater. And the quips that he trades with Catwoman cannot hold a bat signal up to the chemistry between Pfeiffer and Keaton.
You think this is some kind of game?
Yeah, now we're playing. Don't I get din first?
I'll feed you in your cell. That cable hits us, we're both fried.
I knew I felt a spark between us.
Quick, somebody stop her before she starts doing her problematic jokes about having feline AIDS.
Who can see in the dark? I can.
I can.
But he finally gets a clue after waking up in her apartment craving some delicious Dasani purified water and stepping on one of Patience's diamond claws. And while Tom investigates the evidence, Patience is called in by Laurel on a video phone that somehow exists in 2004 so that Catwoman can be framed and arrested for Laurel's murder of George Adair.
Vicky had evidence that Biolene was toxic.
All of the evidence, every single piece, it points to you. I don't know who you are.
The same girl you were with last night.
Wow, Halle Berry is actually doing some good acting that won her the Oscar in the first place? Maybe this movie's last act is gonna take a turn for the better. And now we're back to getting stupid. As Patience is able to slink her body out of the bars of the prison cell, because cats have rubber fucking bones, I guess, then seeks to stop the shipment of the Biolene cream by pulling the tires out from under the company's trucks. In perhaps the only time a comic book movie has stolen an action sequence from George Lucas's American Graffiti. Meanwhile, Detective Lone confronts Laurel Adair about the evidence Patience gave him that incriminates Laurel in her husband's death.
Don't be stupid, Laurel. You don't want to kill a cop.
I'm used to doing all kinds of things I don't want to do.
I presume she's referring to her role in Alan Quatermain and the Lost City of Gold. Oh, right, she meant this movie.
Thanks. Now I can kill you both.
Shannon, can we retake that line of dialogue so you sound like you give somewhat of a shit?
Ah, fuck you, Jagoff.
No, my name is Petoff.
I know.
This all leads to Catwoman's final showdown with the woman who ordered her murder, to the tune of a music score that sounds like the Great Value version of the Greek chorus from Disney's Hercules. Yeah, we can't afford Hans Zimmer to score our superhero movie, so how about we get the next best thing? En Vogue!
I can't be hurt.
Biolene.
You stop using it, and your face disintegrates. And if you keep using it, skin like living marble.
And yet somehow the instantly iconic villain of Marble Face would never appear in the DC universe ever again. Yeah, I bet you the Snyderverse would have done this character justice. But just as it seems that Laurel is about to end Catwoman's 9 lives...
Game over.
Guess what? It's overtime.
Along comes Halle Berry with a snappy comeback that's somehow worse than her parting line to Toad in the first X-Men movie.
The same thing that happens to everything else.
Please stop forcing Halle Berry to write her own snappy jokes for movies.
Give me your hand!
Wow, I'm falling from the building with the makeup and the cracked face and the Catwoman with the diamond claws. Nice cat lady! And so the movie wraps up like every other superhero movie from the 2000s did, with our title hero realizing they must leave the person they love behind, so that they can further explore their powers in a sequel that's totally gonna happen.
But you live in a world that has no place for someone like me. You see, sometimes I'm good. Oh, I'm very good. But sometimes I'm bad.
Oh, like hell you're bad. The worst thing you did in this entire movie was steal one necklace. Yeah, you're an anti-hero, alright, much like this was an anti-movie. But it could have been even worse, folks, because this movie almost ended with a Britney Spears theme song that was written and produced by R. Kelly.
How about a kiss, Santa Claus?
Y'all killing me with this! Y'all trying to kill me!
In the years since she accepted her Worst Actress Razzie in person, Halle Berry seems to have largely forgiven this movie for nearly derailing her career. And it certainly wouldn't be the last time Catwoman would be seen in the movies, with Zoe Kravitz set to play Selina Kyle next year in The Batman. But while the Catwoman movie still lives up to its terrible reputation, it's easier to laugh at it nowadays, when female and black comic fans have far better options to see themselves as superheroes. So if you can forgive its headache-worthy editing and painful disrespect for its source material, Catwoman remains a chuckle-worthy artifact of a far darker time for superhero movies, and we must learn from its mistakes so that we may never repeat them. And not only is it no longer the highest-grossing female superhero movie thanks to Captain Marvel and Wonder Woman, but it's no longer the worst film to revolve around CGI feline-human hybrids. I have given a name to my pain, and it is Bustopher Jones in white spats. On the enjoyableness continuum scale from Bull to Bruce, Catwoman is, to paraphrase the Penguin, not the pussy I've been looking for, and throws up a hairball onto 4 lives out of 10. Mistletoe can be deadly if you eat it, but this movie can be even deadlier if you watch it. I'm Jesse Shade for JoBlo.com, and thanks again for watching our show. If you like what you see, please subscribe to the JoBlo Videos channel. Tell all your friends who like this sort of content, and turn on the bell to receive notifications for all of our latest videos. We are an independent company that appreciates all of your support. You see, I got through that whole outro without making one single cat pun. Boy, am I proud of myself. Oh, motherfucker!
Yawn.
Call the cops. You're not gonna believe this.